X Winterview, back again with another brief dialogue. This time, we're going to tackle the big one, consciousness itself. What claim do I have over this subject? What is the basis of my knowledge or expertise? You might be thinking. To my dear friend Annastacey, my reply is, and to anyone else listening, my reply is, this is the one same consciousness that is available. That is the only thing worth talking about. It's the only thing there is, damn it. And therefore, my claim is that I'm talking about the only thing in the room, so to speak. Consciousness itself. And maybe something a bit more mysterious prior to consciousness. What is a priori to that consciousness? This subject is fraught with paradox and laden with concepts, none of which are true. Yet, I will be talking as if it's the truth. Or if you prefer, my truth. Or as far as I'm concerned, perhaps. This is the single most perplexing subject when it comes to spirituality. The one often overlooked by the sincere, devoted, earnest spiritual seeker who gets a bit bamboozled or hooked into the many delights and appearances in the world. Many a spiritual seeker have fallen down that cul-de-sac of getting interested in bliss and energies, gods, demons, esoteric phenomena, the cities, the stuff of spiritual bookshops, the stuff that fills spiritual bookstores to bursting point. Well, that is a curiosity, but a bit of a diversion at the end of the day. There is only this awakeness. This awakeness or consciousness has never come or gone. It has never arrived and then gone away. This awakeness is ever present. It's uninterrupted. I'm getting out my thesaurus. Seamless. Okay, that's the end of my thesaurus. Doesn't change at all. However, the content or the appearance of the world seems to change instant to instant. Something new, something different, something delightful, something awful, something meh at any given moment. All vague curiosities, really, but there is only one awakeness that does not come or go. How do we know that awakeness does not come or go? Well, first and foremost, nothing interrupts it. Nothing gets in the way of awakeness. If you don't like the word awakeness, let's try the word existence. Your very existence, which is the very awakeness, which is life. Let's go with existence, but easy to talk about. That sense of existing, that sense that I exist, or here I am, or I'm alive, if you like. Don't have to get too fancy pants with our terminology here. I think we all know what we're talking about. We can say lots of things about our lives and about our existence. We can describe it in great depth, but there is one central fact to that conversation, and that is existence itself. That does not change. It's not debatable, not negotiable. It's there, whether you like it or not. We know that existence doesn't come or go because we've never had an experience of existence disappearing. All we know is that we exist, and we exist permanently. Let's examine that. And some of you might be thinking, what? That's not true. I go to sleep at night and I don't exist then. I got really drunk one night and I didn't exist then for a few hours. I got lost in Thailand. No, let's not go there. So, existence. Late at night, when you're tired, you've had a few beers maybe smoke some ice, and you know how it goes. You're falling asleep. Actually, no, if you smoked ice, you probably aren't falling asleep. Strike that from the record. You're lying there in bed and it's getting late and you're a bit drowsy. And your eyes are getting heavy, very sleepy. The sense of the world is falling away. But existence hasn't gone anywhere. You still exist. The sense of who you are and where you are might be getting a bit fuzzy around the edges, as it does as you fall asleep. But there you are, still existing. No sense of not existing. And suddenly, instantly, without any time passing, you're in a dream. A crazy, way out, surreal dream of unicorns, dragons, wizards, magical places where the rules are all different, and there seems to be something very important that you have to do in that dream. You have to open a jar of pickles for the princess before the London bus arrives at the bus stop. For some reason that seems important in the dream, and we know that dreams just roll like that. They're a bit crazy. But that doesn't matter. That's beside the point. The point is that you're there, experiencing that dream. You exist. So we can see that the sense of existence hasn't shifted at all. That sense of being there does not change. You were there as you were falling asleep late at night, and bam! You're still there, in the dream. And then the dream ends, and bam! Before any time passes, you're awake again, in the day, in the bed where you slept last night, or where you went to bed last night at least. Maybe the same person next to you, unless you're a total uber stud, like X Winterview, and there's just a whole bunch of random women lying around the room because you're just that attractive that shit happens. Nonetheless, you still exist, irrespective of the appearance of the outside world. That existence did not change, did not have a dent put in it by the dream or the sleep or anything. It was totally seamless. Some of you might think, yeah, but what about deep sleep, where there was no dream? I didn't exist then. Not true. Not at least in terms of your experience. You had no experience of deep sleep. There was nothing to be said about it because there was no one there to experience it. You might hypothesize that there was deep sleep. You might have someone tell you that, hey man, you were deeply asleep at one point. Fair enough. All nice little stories that appear, make sense, logical, etc. But as far as your direct experience of that went, it was not interrupted. Totally seamless. And so that ever-present, ever-existing awakeness. And when I say awakeness, I mean awake to the experience, not awake in the sense of awake in the daytime. You can be awake to the dream that you're having at night. You have to be. Otherwise, how would you know you're dreaming? So, that ever-present awakeness, we also call consciousness, is the only game in town, so to speak. But that consciousness, the appearance that befalls us, that changes all the time from instant to instant, is that what we are truly, in essence? ? Yes and no. We are that, but we are also something greater than that. We have to be. And that's just even using logic. The good old logic. We have to be something a priori or behind the scenes or beneath or underneath. It's hard to conceptualize. Impossible, in fact, to conceptualize. Because if we weren't that very awakeness, then there'd be no recognition of the content of the world, if that makes sense. We're like the foundational awareness that is there to witness the world, you might say. Not separate from the world, but the world is that very aware awakeness, you could also say. This leads the spiritual seeker back to the one fact, away from the tangential subjects of gods and devils, of energies, of karma, of rebirth, of chakras, of energies, of meridians, of chanting, of gurus, of levels of awakening, etc., etc. All peripheral epiphenomenon of no particular value to study or be interested in, really. Know who you are, and the rest is obvious. If you continue to take yourself to be this conceptual person, this I inside a body, who possesses consciousness, or consciousness happening when you're awake in the day only kind of deal, then it all gets messy. Why does it get messy? You get sidetracked because your conceptualizing of the world gets you sidetracked. If indeed, as your mind would report, I'm a person who has consciousness, then you're going to be forever trapped in a loop of trying to figure out who you are relative to this consciousness, and what this consciousness means relative to a concept. You can see that will get very muddy very quickly. To keep yourself on the straight and narrow, so to speak, get interested, if you can, in consciousness itself, in that very aware awakeness itself. The presence, if you like. Some people like that word. I don't mind that word, actually. That's kind of accurate in a way. It's ever-present. There's a fullness, an ever-present fullness to consciousness. So no matter what is happening in the world, that ever-present fullness, that I am, is immutable, beyond debate, unimpeachable. Not here, not there, not anywhere, has no location, no duration, ever-present, omniscient. What's the other one? Omnipresent, omniscient. I'm missing one omni. Damn it. I've lost an omni. Okay, I'll think of it later. Nonetheless, a lot of the conceptualizations we have about God seem to point to consciousness as God. This is a problematic way of thinking about it, I think, because you somehow invent or create in your mind at least a deity, an external thing out there that has power and agency. Is just as bad, so to speak, as creating a independent central character called me in a body. That duality is not helpful, I can assure you. Consciousness is not a deity. It has no power. It has no force. It has no soul or will, or you might even say it has no intelligence, although it's pretty damn clever. so seemingly. Conceptualizing it in any particular way will be problematic, because the mind will latch on to the concept and try and figure it out, try and resolve that concept. And that's why people get into these awful spiritual cul-de-sacs, these dead ends where they can't seem to get out of. They ask questions like, how do I get enlightened? When will I be enlightened? When will it happen to me? And so forth. And also the old favorite, I thought I was enlightened, but then I lost it for a while. I thought I had it, and then it went away. This doesn't really make sense, because you have to create a person conceptually to have the experiences, and then demand that this character that you invented, fictional character, becomes enlightened somehow. Or assert, even worse, that this fictional character of concept became enlightened momentarily, and then lost it. What most people mean when they talk about those things are they're talking about the experiences they have. Some people have what we might call a very blissful, peaceful, disembodied sense of no self, which seems to last for several weeks or a few days perhaps, and they think, this is it, I've reached enlightenment. Alas, no, the experience does not last. It fails, and it seems that the person has lost it. Of course, if you look at that carefully, you've come back to the concept of a person who had something, and a concept now of a person who's lost something. The mind will do this endlessly forever if the person vanishes. Unless the person vanishes off the scene, as in the concept dissolves. How does that concept dissolve? I don't know. It's a total mystery to me. It just seems that awakeness, that awareness, suddenly, spontaneously, for no reason I can think of, becomes awake to itself. Awake to the fact that it's the only game in town, that it's the only thing, and that the conceptualizing of me and I and this and that and hither and thither and stuff all suddenly is revealed as concept, and it's suddenly realized that awakeness, that awake, aware, ever-present consciousness that I am has always been present. It never has come or gone. All that you could say that happened was that the experience of conceptualizing as myself as a person had arisen in consciousness and now has fallen away. Another way of saying it is, and this one may be a bit of a problematic definition or concept, but I quite like for some reason, is that enlightenment is when consciousness itself has no need for you anymore, and it comes for you, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's like a shark seeking out its victim, helplessly paddling around the shallows, and boom, out of the depths, it comes for you, and it tears you apart, and you are not there anymore. So that reverses the idea of the spiritual search, the idea that the person is seeking enlightenment. Perhaps enlightenment is seeking the person. And in fact, that's probably more accurate in a way, because the person only exists as concept and therefore is flimsy. It is prone to coming and going. And in fact, we have that experience of the person coming and going. That person that we think we are with all our labels and concepts vanishes every night and changes over time. Therefore, it's not the only game in town. It's changeable. But that which is awake to that has not changed. As you can see, I keep looping back to the same central point, central theme. The questions that the mind has, the ideas that it keeps throwing up, the doubts, the queries, the problems, the etc., all stem from the central fact that the mind does not recognize who it is. The mind cannot recognize who it is, unfortunately, which is a bummer. When that recognition recognizes it's recognizing, you might even say, just to bend the mind left for a bit, that's when the mind shuts up. It has nothing more to report on the matter. Something is known fundamentally from that point on. It is known who I am, so to speak, or what I am, even if you like. It doesn't have to be personalized. We don't have to get into this game of getting rid of the self, denying the self, attacking the self, all that sort of stuff. That's unimportant. It's a secondary issue. That can go on. It doesn't matter. It's just a play in the divine, so to speak. Just another experience, like clouds passing. There's the experience of a person passing by in consciousness. And there's the experience of a person leaving in consciousness. And all the while, consciousness remains. So that thing that we call enlightenment, which is the dissolution of the conceptualization of me as an individual, can happen in consciousness, but consciousness remains unchanged, and therefore you could say that enlightenment doesn't actually happen in that way. It's just another experience that arises in that ever-present, awake, aware consciousness that I am. Okay. My circuits are overheating now. The processor is maxing out. The CPU needs some cooling, or some coffee, perhaps. Time to draw this brief dialogue to a close at about 21 minutes. Well, thanks again for listening. Your comments are welcome. I will try and reply if you have questions when I have the time. This has been X Winterview with a brief dialogue explaining the mysteries of the universe. Adieu.